All right. So tell me, so I'm here with Doug Link, and he's going to tell me a little bit about his axe throwing business that he started. I just want to know, when did you start and like what was your motivation to start the business?
Okay, so I've had a career for 25 years, and the company, the corporation that I worked for 25 years, we were contemplating closing that location down,
Hmm.
and looking forward to closing that location down. I kind of had to set myself up to be able to do something after losing a job after having it for 25 years. So
Yeah.
I was actually on a work project in New York City. I was living in Manhattan for a year and a half on a job for IMAX Corporation. That was my day job, and I uh, I went axe throwing in Brooklyn. And this was in 2018, and a friend of mine that I was working with said, "Hey, you want to go have some beers and throw some axes?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds amazing. I've never heard of that. I've never done it before." And I walked into this business on a Wednesday afternoon in Brooklyn, and the place was packed. And I just had so much fun that on the subway ride home, I called a friend of mine in town here in Sacramento and said, "Hey, I just went axe throwing in New York City, and we've got to open an axe bar in Sacramento tomorrow." And he said, "That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm in." And so I started doing some research to find out where how big of a thing this was, because I'd never heard of it. And apparently, there was a lot of axe throwing bars in Canada and a lot on the East Coast, and but there was only three west of the Mississippi in the United States.
Yeah.
So we got in real early when there wasn't any there. That caused a couple of problems because we had to find a location to open an axe bar, and a lot of landlords wanted nothing to do with us with
Yeah.
opening an axe bar because none of them had ever heard of it, and they were afraid that they were going to get sued. Somebody was going to get killed, in an axe throwing accident. So Mark and I were the first two partners, and we needed somebody to help us build the location out. So Mark had a friend that was a general contractor, so we brought him into the partnership, and we looked for about 3 or 4 months for a location to put our first axe throwing bar, and nobody would lease us a location. So Jim, the third partner, said, "Hey, I've got a buddy who has a friend that's a landlord of it was a brewery that had gone out of business." And he said, "If we make him a partner, a fourth partner, he guarantees he can get us into that location." So kind of had to, we kind of were force fed our fourth partner so that we could, realize our dream,
Yeah.
so that we could get a location.
Yeah.
We didn't have a location, and we weren't going to start a business unless we had a location. So that was the beginning of Smart Axe. It was four partners, and we that's how we started the business.
That's amazing. That's cool
Yeah,
how it went from just like a visit to New York or and seeing that there and then
yeah,
basically bringing it over here to the East Coast when you realized that was something that was very popular over there. And then you
yeah,
realized this could be a huge thing over here as well.
yeah. Now, a lot of people said it was going to be a fad, which it turned out to kind of be a fad. But it was early entry. Early entry was the
Yeah.
big thing, and the fourth partner that we took on, his daughter played soccer on the East Coast, and he drove back to see her. And he said as soon as he crossed the Mississippi, all he heard was axe throwing commercials. And he said, "This is huge. We
Hmm.
better open up a bunch of locations because it wasn't really expensive. The barrier to entry to get into the business wasn't that big." So we we decided as a group that we were going to open multiple locations in our area because we were afraid somebody else would open locations if we didn't do it. So after we opened our first location, we immediately signed leases for four other locations,
Nice.
um, in Roseville, in Folsom, in Modesto, and in
Hmm.
Davis. And that then COVID hit. We opened up all of our locations during COVID, and COVID is another That's another monster
Yeah.
completely, to
Yeah,
open a
that's
business during COVID. But we ended up building out these locations during COVID. So when the regulations, when the restrictions from COVID relaxed, we had all these locations ready to open, and people wanted to get out and do fun stuff, and so we did fairly well. Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty smart,
Yeah.
honestly, too,
Yeah.
because when people were finally getting back out again,
Yeah.
after COVID and wanting to like find stuff to do with their families after being cooped up in the house for such a long period of time. I feel like
Yeah.
such a new and exciting idea, like an axe throwing bar,
Yeah.
definitely drew out a lot of business and customers.
Yeah, it was actually it was exactly that because things started opening up in California, but Hawaii was still closed. You couldn't travel to Hawaii.
Yeah, yeah,
Mexico couldn't travel internationally, couldn't go to Mexico. Even Disneyland in the amusement parks in California were still heavily regulated and closed. So all the kids were back in school. Parents were looking for fun things for the kids to do. That summer of the summer of 2021. So we everything closed down in April of 2020.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so
I think that's
really,
what I remember.
yeah, it was really that, the following summer, everybody really wanted to get out and do fun stuff, and
Yeah,
we benefited from that, definitely.
that's amazing. So,
Yeah.
what form or legal status of business did you choose for the axe throwing company and why?
Uh, Um, we were a C corp, and we did a C corp. I mean, I'm currently, jumping ahead. I'm currently an S corp. So the S corp, um, eh, just the way that you pay the officers and stuff
Yeah.
is a little bit different. We wanted more of a corporate umbrella, a protective umbrella, since we had so many locations. We elected to go with the C corp. But currently, I jumping ahead, I have separated from that partnership, and I took one of the locations with me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm an S corp, which it's just easier for taxes for me personally. To I can pass through any profits. They pass through me. I get a K1, and then I can fill out my personal taxes. It's just tax reasons are the biggest
Yeah,
reason
for
why
sure.
you and the corporate protection, being
Mm-hmm.
under a C corp. There's more of a corporate umbrella that protects the owners. That's probably why we decided to do a C corp.
Okay, that's great. So you talked about COVID earlier. So when the epidemic, like when people were able to start going back into like to be able to go back out again and everything, what kind of marketing did you use to attract customers to your axe throwing locations?
Well, the let's jump back to the COVID thing real quick.
Mm-hmm.
We we opened in August of 2019 with one location, okay? And I only had four targets in one location and no beer sales because I hadn't got my beer license yet. In in December, we doubled the size of that venue and got our alcohol license. So January, February, March of 2020, we did way better in corporate sales than we had done in 2019. So we got kicked into this weird silo where businesses were getting loans
Yeah.
because their businesses were struggling under COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Our business on paper actually did better in 2020 than it did in 2019. So we got put in this weird silo where we weren't approved for any corporate loan programs or anything.
Okay.
And we got stuck there. We could never make any traction. We couldn't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Really severe issue with the government loan system during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
that because not a lot of companies went through what we went through. We opened
Mm-hmm.
late in 2019.
Yeah.
We filed a tax, return in 2019 that, had this much money. And then we showed our receipts from 2020, first 3 months of 2020, and it was tenfold what we did in 2019. So we stayed open and when there were orders for people to close down, and we kind of operated as a speakeasy
Yeah.
against it.
I think I
And
remember that
yeah, yeah,
my dad
we
bringing
operated
us
as a
there.
speakeasy because our view was if the government wasn't going to help us,
Yeah.
then we weren't going to do what the government was telling us to do. And that turned out to be very profitable for us. There were a
Yeah.
lot of people, and we averaged, during COVID, we said if you are, if you haven't been immunized, if you are, if you're scared of COVID, don't come here.
Hmm.
And we just said that straight up on our answering machine and everything else. We said, don't come here. If you got a problem
Yeah.
with COVID, don't come here. And um and so so we kind of, word was out. So especially when we came back into COVID, a lot of people had been coming to us, and now people aren't afraid anymore. So now they want to come. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of word of mouth, but social media, we definitely had a good presence on social media. I had a really good, I guess, a lot of emails. I had a really good email database from people who had been in our location. Um, and I just, compiled every email that I ever had, and I sent a blast email out to people saying, hey, if you want to be on our list, be on our list. If you don't, we'll opt you out.
Hmm.
And so really just a lot of grassroots emails, social media. That's how we really got the word out, after COVID, for people to come in. But we
Yeah.
we kind of had a good, I guess, awareness. So there was a public awareness of us because we
Yeah.
were really the only axe throwing people in town at that
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
So since you guys were at that point, like the only axe throwing place in town, have you seen other axe throwing places pop up now, like
Oh yeah.
competitors
Oh yeah.
trying to get a
Yeah.
piece of the business here?
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah.
And
Has that been a
and I was
struggle?
kind of I
Yeah.
was I was I didn't really, and I was kind of alone in my partnership as this with this mindset, but I wanted to grow the axe throwing business as a whole. So I kind of looked at, somebody opening in Auburn or Lincoln or Stockton or Fairfield as they're just growing the business. I really didn't think
Hmm.
people were going to drive 40 miles, from Fairfield to Sacramento to go axe throwing. There were a couple that opened up that were I would consider competition. But the biggest thing was it wasn't a very expensive barrier to entry to get into the axe throwing business.
Yeah.
You really, for $100,000, um, you could have a really nice facility. There
Yeah.
were people that were opening up with chicken wire and two by fours that didn't put a lot of money in it, but that's how we differentiated ourselves from the other places. Is ours our axe throwing was really nice. I mean, it was a really
Yeah.
nice venue. The bins were really nice. It was high end. We spent $2,000 on every axe throwing target that we opened because it was handmade, heavy duty, iron, steel, wood. It wasn't just two by fours and chicken wire. It was nice. and
Hmm.
and and we trained our employees. They could teach you how to throw axes. We guaranteed that you were going to, be able to throw an axe before you left our facility. So
Yeah.
we just had to, there was a lot of competition that started opening up. But we had a pretty good handle on the market. We had 6 locations in the Sacramento area. And with Smart Axe, we built a really good name brand. We had a really good brand.
That's
So I mean,
amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So running into because it is an axe throwing bar, have you, because we were talking about like how some of your investors were scared with getting sued and everything like that. How did you combat that with making sure that your business was not going to get sued or customers weren't going to get hurt?
Well, safety, we have first of all, we have a really good insurance policy.
That's
If
good. Yeah,
there is an accident, accidents happen, we were covered there. But, safety was the biggest thing.
for
We were
sure.
beer only at the time. We weren't full alcohol. We did keep an eye on how much people had to drink. In fact, when we wanted to open our Davis location, the we had to go talk in front of the city council. That was the city council, Davis City Council's
Wow.
biggest
Yeah.
issue before they issued us a conditional use permit. Was they wanted to know how people were going to be safe in there while they were drinking beer. They
Yeah.
were they discussed us limiting, giving people two drink tickets when they came in, and or maybe the most ridiculous one was for every person that was in there, there had to be one employee standing next to them managing them, and that was
Yeah,
just
that's a little
that
much.
was ridiculous to think that we could handle, do that, do the business. That just didn't pencil out.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, safety, we had our safety rules posted. We've got experts that managed and watched what people were doing and kept an eye on them. And we gave people, three warnings, with safe behavior.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't conduct safe behavior, and that was in your group, it was,
Yeah.
your whole group would be shut down if you guys had three violations, of our safety procedures.
Smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they also, I believe you have them like sign a waiver too when they
Yep,
come
yep,
in,
yep.
which kind of
There's a
goes over all
waiver,
that.
and that was more of a legal thing. Waivers in California aren't really applicable, but the insurance companies want you to have a waiver, and I think
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
more so that the people, it's an extra layer of awareness that, hey, this is a dangerous activity that you're taking part of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So how would you say like all your businesses are going now and like how your company's just grown
Well,
to where you are now?
Well,
How have
that's
you
the
guys
interesting
doing?
thing. That's the interesting thing. The businesses, we self-funded the build out of six locations
Mm-hmm.
through the profits that we made in the company. So it was a successful business for the first 4 years, and then there started to be some cracks in the partnership because
Yeah.
it became
Yeah,
partners with people that I wasn't friends with or that I didn't really know. There's personality conflicts and
for sure.
and and just the way that, the fundamental ways that you want to run your business that people don't agree on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I removed myself from the partnership because I didn't
Yeah.
like the way that two of the partners wanted to conduct business. And I started to see the business slipping. They wanted to reorganize and they wanted to actually shut down our location in Midtown at 20th and K. And I
Yeah,
felt like that location had the most opportunity.
for sure.
So
Yeah.
I took the opportunity to leave the partnership at that point, and I took that location with me, took it as
Mm-hmm.
my own location. So I removed myself from the partnership, and my buyout was the assets of our K Street location. I took that business with me, and now it was Smart Axe originally. I changed the name to Wiseax. I used, I was able to use a lot of the resources that we already had in the
Yeah.
building by just changing the name from Smart to Wise. And basically it was the same business, but just with a different name.
Yeah.
And but I also saw the writing on the wall with the corporation and with just axe throwing and beer. It wasn't trending up, it was trending
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
So I thought more things needed to happen in this location. So I took over in April of last year, and the first thing I did was I got rid of half of the axe throwing bins, and I put in billiards, and I put in pinball machines, and I put in a lot of other coin-op type games,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it made it more of a place that you could, a date spot where you could do other things. It wasn't just
Yeah.
axe throwing and beer. And part of my business plan was to get a full liquor license.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
as of April 15th of this year, I had my full liquor license.
Nice.
And
Nice.
then I went back in again and I got rid of two more of the axe throwing bins. And I put in a lounge, a velvet lounge with couches and things where people could come in and sit down and
Yeah.
relax and watch TV. So I've got three axe throwing bins, which used to be the core business. Now
Mm-hmm.
I've got three x-ray bins. I've got four billiards tables, six pinball machines. I've got foosball, shuffleboard, skee ball, basketball. I've got tabletop games. I have a velvet lounge.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of other stuff to do. in
Smart.
addition to
Yeah.
full alcohol now. So I've gotten away just from the original core business, which
Yeah.
got us here, which was axe throwing
And beer.
in beer, and
Yeah.
I've really expanded on that and made and changed the name of the business to Foreplay. That now I'm known as Foreplay, and that's just I still have my corporate structure is still Wisex Corp. I'm still an S Corp. I didn't change anything corporately wise.
Hmm.
I just changed the doing business as in the forward facing exposure I have to customers and vendors, and it's Foreplay. And I'm branding myself as the place that you come and get your drink on and go party before you go out and go dancing and do other stuff
Yeah,
and play because there's lots of stuff to play in there. So it all
for
kind of
sure. Yeah.
it all kind of brands together and works out.
Yeah, no, that's amazing how
Yeah,
like you've come to learn, and then with your business down in K-Town, how you've adapted it to like
yeah,
changing, like
yeah,
changing scenes and also like trying to also foresee the business to be more profitable in the future if axe throwing is not as popular anymore.
yeah.
So that's just really cool to see how far you've come with that business.
Yeah, it's you basically you have to be willing and able to evolve a
Yeah.
little bit. And that was one of the things with the a couple of the partners that I had previously. They weren't willing to evolve. They would rather
Yeah.
shut down a business that started to slide. They'd rather shut it down and get out of that business than you've got all these assets in that building. You
Yeah,
spent
for
we
sure.
spent $250,000 on each location to build them out. Why would you just shut that down? Why wouldn't you try and make some changes and
Hmm.
and create a vibe where maybe it starts to connect with other people and they have a good time.
Yeah,
People love Foreplay now. They love it. They come in here, and I'm still in the very beginning growth stages of this new business. I mean,
that's
basically,
great.
for we changed the branding and the name on excuse me on April 1st. So we got our full liquor license on February 12th, and we had our best month ever in March, and then changed the
Amazing.
name on April 1st, and it's starting to kick off.
That's amazing. Well, I can't wait to come and go check
Yeah,
it out when I come back home over summer.
yeah,
I definitely will. I'll bring some of my friends down.
you bet.
Yep. But thank you so much. I'm gonna
Okay,
end this recording just really
okay,
quick.
all right.